Hello, I'm Yolanda Nava. Thank you for joining me for Do You See What I See? Today we have a superlative guest, actor, producer, humanitarian Edward James Olmos. Many of you will know who he is. You will recognize him from his many films and stage and television performances. He has a presence that's expanded over 50 years, and he's still going strong. Major actor, star, humanitarian. Welcome, Edward James Olmos. It's wonderful to have you.
Hi, Yolanda. What an honor. It's been so long, and I love seeing you, and thank you for having me.
Well, I'm honored to have you, Eddie. I can remember we've known each other for a long time. You went to high school with my children's father, Senator Art Torres. We used to hang out when we were both first married. And I remember so many things about you going back then. I recall you in Zoot Suit, the original performances, when you were at the Mark Taper Forum in the very famous play playing El Pachuco in the Luis Valdez production. That sparked your career, did it not?
Yeah, it was a single most extraordinary moment in my life, artistic life. It opened the door to not only a national awareness, but an international awareness. The play was really well received throughout the world. And we didn't travel, but the word got out and people came from all over the world. And I remember that the English Shakespearean company, the entire company came. The five Kahali families and Kabuki families came from Japan and India, and the Russian Moscow Theater came, and they had heard about it. And over the 2 plus years that we performed the piece, it was just amazing the impact. And Luis Valdez did something very special. It was the very first time that Mexican Americans were portrayed on the big stages, the main stages of the United States and in the world.
It was an incredible production. And I have to ask you the question, because how did you ever manage to contort your body to the El Pachuco?
I'll tell you this much, it was difficult. It was a physical, very demanding physical play. It's like doing a dance. Every night was 2 hours and 15 to 20 minute dance. It was a poem, it was poetry, it was dance, it was music. There was a drama and comedy, but the posturing that I took and that I projected with the character was difficult for my back.
I would imagine it would have been. I can remember, when we spent time together as couples way back when, that you had a very unique perspective on your career. You didn't let any PR person or anybody manage your career. You didn't follow anybody's orders, because usually when you're an actor, that can happen. People try to tell you what to do. How did you manage to have such a strong sense of self at that early age?
Yolanda, it took so long, and I had done so much by the time I got to the point of doing Zoot Suit. I had done theater since 1964.
Oh, wow.
And here we were in 1978, and I was getting my very first paycheck in a real production. I had done nothing but off LA theater, which is really far off Broadway, real far. So it was a situation. I'd done it for years. And, I never thought that we'd be able to find a story, that would allow my abilities to come shining through, because it had been so long and there had never been anything like it. And so when I got the opportunity to do this role, I hit really hard. I mean, extremely hard. It was very well received, and I won a lot of critical acclaim throughout the theater world. And with that, of course, came fame and fortune in many ways. And I had taken so long to get here, and I knew that my path was different because of the extent of what I was portraying and the cultures that what I was portraying a Latino, and really we really hadn't had that type
Right.
of imaging done in the art forms. We had Latino plays being done, Latino film, Latino television, but they weren't national, and it wasn't really consumed by all cultures. It was just consumed by, if anything, Latinos if they got a hold of it. But so this was the first piece that went not only national, but it went multicultural, and then it also went international. So with that, I gained a tremendous amount of understanding. And when it came down to making choices, people would say, you should do this, you should do that. And I would say, yeah, but let my work talk. Instead of me trying to get people interested in me because, hey, look at me, I did this. Let's do something else. Let's continue to move forward. And I did Wolfen next, which was an indigenous First Nation character with Albert Finney and myself. And that was right after had been doing Zoot Suit for quite a while, couple of years. And then I went to New York with it. But in between going to New York and finishing in LA, I did a film with Albert Finney. And it was an amazing piece of work. And then I chose to do the work on Broadway in New York. And then we went on to do, right after that, when I got done with Broadway, I went on to do a piece of work that was extremely different, which was Blade Runner. And Blade Runner became a multicultural event because of my character, not because of the way they had designed the story, but my character brought a tremendous sense of understanding. I developed the character for Zoot Suit. I developed the character for Wolfen and the character for Blade Runner. And then I went on to do Zoot Suit the movie. And then we did, I produced my very first piece of work in 1981 called The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez, which is the first motion picture that I produced and first one that I really took a hold of and really took my values, my aesthetic, and put them into play. And I didn't have a publicist. I still don't have a publicist to this day, pushing my face out there. I just always felt that the more you pushed, the more something was taken away. And the more that you allowed situation and your craft and the things that you were doing to push you forward, the further you would go. And it held pretty strong. And to this day, it has held really strong. Not to say that I haven't had people that say, please, you're doing, right now I'm doing Mayans MC. And, they asked me to do publicity for it. Of course I will do publicity for the show. You have to. I did publicity for Blade Runner. I did publicity for Ballad of Gregorio Cortez. But that's different. That now you're talking about a piece of work that you are a part of, and come and see the work. I'm not saying, hey, look at me. And publicists have a tendency to get you out there, not with a piece of work, but with, like you as a persona. And pretty soon you become something else. So I was very fortunate in that from the very beginning, I must say that I was able to understand my position in this art form and in this life that I had chosen to do and that I'd been doing for many, many years.
Well, you've done it for many years. You had worked a number of years before, the success. You were just amazingly incredible in that production, and as you say, the production itself was very, very powerful. It had a story that resonated across the globe. You bring to your roles a kind of a unique aspect, artistic aspect, and a certain kind of gravitas, and you shape your roles in a very different way. They're not all the same, they're very different. And does that come from lived experience when you step into the role, let's say, of a police officer in Miami Vice, or if you step into the role of a Supreme Court justice, or of a admiral in a Battlestar Galactica? Those are very different roles.
Yeah, I was very fortunate, and they came up to the theater that demanded that we infuse a lot of character. So you become a character actor and not a personality. And there's nothing wrong with being a personality. John Wayne did a great job with it. Jimmy Stewart, most of the great classics people did very strong work as personalities, their own personality portrayed. John Wayne never played anything but John Wayne.
Right, right.
And Jimmy Stewart never played anything but Jimmy Stewart. But then you get some really strong performances by character actors like Anthony Quinn, who did Zorba the Greek, and he did the brother of Zapata, Emiliano Zapata. And he did quite a few things. So I was lucky that I became a character actor and I was able to develop them. And so when I got these other roles, I would work the same way I worked in theater. I would do research. And the first thing I tried to find in my balance of understanding of the character was the music. Yes. What is the music that this person listens to? Or maybe he doesn't listen to music. And you start to formulate an aesthetic of understanding. And with the ballad of Gregorio Cortez, my aesthetic evolved to a point of where I think to this day it was the single most important understanding of my artistic development. I got it from a brilliant director that I had worked with in 1977 called Robert M. Young. And Robert is still alive today. He's 98, going to be 99. And we worked together in many, many pieces. The first piece we ever did together was a thing called Alambrista.
Yes.
The wire jumper. And to this day, if you ever watch that movie, I worked one day on the film, at one scene. But I hung with him the whole day and night. And I watched the way he worked. And I was enthralled by his ability to get real performances from non-actors. And I said, wow, this is something different. There's very few actors on this set. These are all the real people whose lives we're portraying. And he gets them to really be themselves in front of camera. And I said, this is fantastic. And that aesthetic that he showed me that first night, and that I hung with him. From then on, I hung with him almost every day. And to this day, I still hang with him today. I go visit him as much as humanly possible. And I got to tell you, but the aesthetic was very simple, okay? The aesthetic dealt with, you don't romanticize, you don't glamorize, you don't exploit, you don't gratuitize, you don't play any results with either the directing or the camera or the acting. And when you take those elements and understand them, and you take them out of the equation in the art form, truity, manipulation, romanticization, glamorization, exploitation, and of course, the key was playing results. When you take those out, you get a purity of documentation of the behavior of the people that you're talking about. And I said, wow, this is like, it's not a documentary because we're making fictionalized film, but boy, this was just stunning. And I used it from that moment on. I've never made a movie that aesthetic was not used. And a lot of filmmakers, when I come into work and I have my aesthetic and I start to talk to them about this, they either embrace it or they kind of stand off, because it's like, they get a little bit, taken aback. And so it has been a positive and a negative, but I will say I've always used it, and in turn, my characters, whether I'm doing somebody else's piece of work or my own piece of work, have always come true. The truth comes through, and the ego stays out of it. The manipulation stays out of it. All of the things that I'm talking about, they all stay out. I don't bring them to the performance. And then all of a sudden, boom, you have something that is uniquely documentation of the behavior of the character that you're trying to portray or document. And so that's how I got into this, and that's how I've lived my artistic endeavor from that moment on. That was 19 '77 is when I really stumbled across Bob. I was really young then. And I was very grateful. Boy, was I grateful when I ran into that man.
Well,
And-
you've been fortunate. Your choices have been very powerful and perhaps influenced by some outside source. There are people who say that they didn't know how their life took them where it took them because there was something else that entered into the picture that kind of swept them along and guided them in some magical, mysterious way. Did that happen with you, do you think?
Well, the question again was, tell me the question.
Well, what guided you? Was it conscious that you were going to make these certain choices, that you're going to become an actor? Did you want to? Did you see yourself becoming nationally renowned? Did you see yourself becoming a producer and a director?
No, they were all processes of evolutionary process. I did not come out of my mother's womb saying to be or not to be. I'm not a people say, well, you're very gifted at it, you know, and you have such natural talent. And I would say, wait a minute, let's go back however old I was when they're telling me that. I said, let's go back a few years to when this all began, because basically I didn't know any of this, and nobody in my family knew any of this, how to work in the arts and how to tell story and communicate in that manner of using film or television or theater. And so that was a learned behavior. I first started off by disciplining myself to do the things I don't like to do, so that I have the discipline to do the things I like to do when I don't feel like doing them. And that to me was like a big key in my life. And I share that with children all the time. I go out and I speak and they always ask me, what's the key to the whole thing? I said, don't stop. That's one. Second one is do the things you don't like to do, like make your bed, you know, brush your teeth, you know, take a bath, you know, all the great things that you have to do, but that you don't like to do, but do them, and do them now with a sense of understanding that if I want to do them and I make myself do them, discipline myself to do them, then when I want to do the things I love to do, like play baseball, that's how it started, sing and dance, that was the next step, and then theater, that was the next step, and then producing, directing, writing, and all the rest came along too. When you want to do those things, you have the discipline to do them when you don't feel like doing them, which then what happens is, I never wanted to be better than anyone, okay? That was never my goal. I didn't even care. What I cared about was just being the best that I could be, period. And by being the best that I could be, the only way I could do that was to discipline myself to do the things I love to do when I didn't feel like doing them, so that I would do them 7 days a week. And people say, well, come on, you didn't do 7 days a week. I mean, come on, you didn't take any time off. I say, nope. I would either do it, watch other people do it, read about it, or, you know, just basically find myself thinking about it all the time. Even though I'm doing other things, I'm still thinking about it. It's still inside the nature of the moment that I'm having, so that I could say, wow, if I was filming this, I would think in my mind. I was a little kid. I was just saying, wow, if I was telling this story, you know, I would just think. I wouldn't say it to anybody. That wasn't the idea. The idea was not to try to become something. It was to understand how to be, period. And then to bring about a strong understanding of self, your own thumbprint. I didn't want to act like anybody else. I didn't want to, you know, I watched Paul Muni. He was unbelievable. I mean, most people don't even know who that man is. And that man in the 20s and 30s and 40s created characters that still to this day resound in masterpieces. You know, I watched Jose Ferrer do, you know, Cyrano de Bergerac. That was like mind-boggling. I watched Anthony Quinn do, Zorba the Greek. And I was like unbelievably moved, because I knew that the guy was Latino and he was playing the Greek. and he was doing it with such an understanding. And Paul Muni, who was from the Yiddish theater, he was a Jewish American actor, he played the Good Earth, he played a Asian, he played Pasteur, he played Benito Juarez.
Yes.
He did the original
masterpiece. About
masterpiece.
self-mastery. You're talking about self-mastery, which is something very important that we often don't even think about in this society, and that is having the mastery for the little things, the things we don't want to do, the discipline that you carry forward. But you also got that in your family. You got fortitude in your family. I remember you saying that in It's All in the Frijoles. And so you're talking about something that's really important. You talked about releasing your ego. That's very important to do, because it's not about the me. It's about the work, or it's about the purpose that we're living with and for. And so that aspect of self-mastery is what's driven your career, I think, so beautifully.
Yes, it has. And, look, had I done all the work that was offered to me, I would have been a lot more famous and a lot richer. But I wasn't into this for fame and fortune, even though I am. People know who I am. People respect me, and they pay me very well. I'm not saying that I didn't make money. I'm not saying that people didn't get to know me. But if my intention had been, like so many people I know, and it's difficult for them once they get to my age to really conceivably understand, because they can't carry it through. They're lost. They can't play a second billing. They can't play a character that comes on just for one scene, because they're just like who they are, and they're just so, no, I wouldn't do that. That is, and the older they get, the more they get that way. You don't loosen down. Where me, I feel very grateful just to get up in the morning and be able to, get a phone call and have someone ask me to do a story with them, and I read the story. And if I like the story, I go do it. I don't care about where it's going to take me. I just want the work. I want to be able to experience the emotional feelings that I get when I'm doing the role or telling that story, either directing it, producing it, writing it, helping distribute it. Believe me, I have done a lot of work in this industry, especially in film, and I'm very grateful that I was given the opportunity, and that I've been able to understand that is the key. The key is to really learn while you're there. Learn what the cinematographer does. Learn what the gaffer does. Learn what the location manager does. Learn what the wardrobe people do. Learn what makeup and hair do. Look at them and be invested in the moment that you're sitting in the chair watching these people do their work, and you just kind of like start to gravitate and understand. When I'm on the set and I'm watching a director of photography work, I watch him. And when I see the first AD, first assistant director running around, I watch the way he does that and say, wow, I see wow, this is great. I didn't know what a first AD did when I started. I didn't go to film school, so I didn't know anything. So I started to learn, but that's the key. The key is to learn and understand, and to actually be able to move it. Because now that I produce, I have to know what a teamster does. I have to know what a location manager does, what the first AD does, how the production secretary, these different parts of the construct of a film, because basically a film is a really collaborative art form. And the director is just one aspect of it. The producer is just one aspect of it. The problem is that the producer is the one who should know how and who are doing everything that they're doing. They're the ones who choose everybody, including the director. And so that being said, I will say that, yeah, to answer your question, yes. that has come to play in my life.
But the fact that you paid attention, that's one of the things that we all need to do more of these days, is to pay attention and also to set intention. And you've done both very successfully. But in the industry in which you worked, and at the time that you started working in it, was very challenging for minority actors.
It still is.
Yes, it is.
Still is.
It is. But the fact that you paid attention to all these other things that were going on around you gave you the capability to produce and gave you the capacity to direct. You learned from that very first director, a great deal, and brought that into your work. You've developed some of your own projects, and at a time when a lot of people were not working and the industry seemed to be closed down, more recently, you have done 2 or 3 significant, projects that have received great acclaim. How is it that you were able to do that? What enabled you to be so creative during such a difficult and challenging time?
Well, it's financial support. We got the financial support from people who said, yeah, I'll help you make this film. And that really is the key. And we did Windows on the World. My son directed it. We helped produce it. I acted in it. We did Walking with Herb, myself and George Lopez. And that was a wonderful piece of work that hardly anyone saw. It's online right now. You can see all these films that I'm talking about right now because they just came out last year, but they're streaming right now on Amazon Prime. And then you can see, so it was Windows on the World, Walking with Herb, and The Devil Has a Name. And The Devil Has a Name is a true factual kind of story that it kind of hits kind of hard. It deals with, it's like a Aaron Brockovich idea because it deals with the water, the contamination of water, what it does to the people that drink it. And that's what that movie is, the movie Devil Has a Name is about that, about the oil industry and how it affects the water table and how in turn that water table has now affected the growth of the food chain. And then it gets into the food and then all of a sudden we're eating it. And so we're getting contaminated off the food. And so it was a very strong true story. And it's called Devil Has a Name. It's kind of fun. It's not I didn't want to do in 2000, it was during the pandemic. It was kind of whoa. But it was right before the pandemic. And we shot it just before the pandemic. And then once we worked on it and it came out when the pandemic was at full force, and everybody was kind of joking.
This is a good segue. This is a good segue into another aspect of your very stellar life, because not only have you had a highly accomplished career, receiving Tonys and Golden Globes and Academy nominations and, numerous accolades and awards, but you have a private life, your other life, your humanitarian life, that which gives back to the world and tries to make the world a better place life, has been significant. And when you mentioned the Aaron Brockovich type story about the water, you have attached yourself to various causes. I mean, you've started a couple of organizations, supporting literacy with the Latino Book and Family Festival. That your name's attached to that, it has been for decades, and the the Latino Film Festival. You've done those things, but you've also been a major speaker talking about the environment, ocean, protected water, talking about health and wellness, spirituality. You've had a broad range of issues that you have supported and spoken about. What are the, and you even spoke, I remember one time during one of the hotspot times in Israel, where you spoke about peace. Talk a little bit about that, some of those other areas that you have defined your life by in your humanitarian work.
I've been very lucky, and therefore a lot has been given to me. And in order to stay in balance, you have to give more than you receive. Yeah. Throughout my lifetime, since I was 1920, I started giving to the community in hopes that I would be in balance when this happened. And it did happen. I became successful, and I didn't want to get successful without being balanced in the nature of humanity. So that's what I did. So from the age of 20, I started giving myself to the outside world and helping. And with kids and all kinds of water, the ocean, the environment, every aspect of life that has touched me, I've gone and helped, and I've tried to help. And all I can say is that I've lived a very privileged life, and I'm very grateful for it. And this has truly been amazing. I must say that.
Well, this has been a wonderful experience. We'll have to cycle back around again to cover some more of the things you do, because I would like to talk to you more about your spiritual awareness, your wellness, and your health habits. I know that you're a vegetarian, but how you've really grown your and balance, this person that is Edward James Olmos. I call you Eddie, but that's an affectionate term because I've known you for so long, but you are balanced, and that's a very important thing, and something that I think when we talk, to younger people, which of course is very important to do, is to guide them in these ways, because they have to develop a depth within themselves. They have the strong sense of self, and of course that's a spiritual practice that comes into place there. And so we'll have to talk about those things at another time. But it is been an honor, Eddie, and I wish you much long life and wellness and longevity and more creativity, because you have given so much to the world in so many, many different ways, so generously, of your wonderful spirit and your beautiful qualities. And so I wish you well. I thank you for joining us. God bless.
God bless you too, Yolanda.
Thank you.